Hi there YouTube, totally amazing here again with another video. The home of scientific knowledge, discovery, research and truth since the 1st of January 2K19. And I've just got to give myself some moisturiser because I get this sort of dry, scaly skin. And I guess that's the inner snake within me trying to get out again. Anyway, moving on. And that his sounded more like a cat, didn't it? Okay, that's our moisturising there sort of done. Just keeping ourselves in fairly tip-top condition. That's what we need to do. Now, I'm also going to have an afternoon beer as I'm mostly done, and today's weapon of choice is the Sapporo, and this is a premium beer anyway. And that's a sort of brewed from kind of it's a Japanese kind of imported deal, 5%. So we're going to go ahead and crack this open, and we're going to talk about today's thing. Now you may remember back in the 4th of May 2019, I did this episode of the LG G3 fault diagnosis and forcing the phone to charge when stuck in a boot loop. Well, that bona fide problem turned out to not actually be anything wrong with the phone. It turned out to be the battery. And we're going to have a look at that now and tell you exactly the reason why this is. Now, the thing is, with these things, these batteries have circuit protection in them. Now we're just going to show you the fault again. When we plug this thing in, essentially what happens is it was charging, and then after a while it would sort of reboot itself and keep getting stuck in a loop. And there we are, see, it's going to now keep doing that again. Well, it seems to maybe have cleared itself, and I'm actually even going to show you how that is as well, exactly what the problem is all about. Hopefully it does the boot loop again, but it's quite possible I may have cleared the fault, and I'll show you how. And it transpires it is the battery. Now basically what I have inside this packet is a replacement, and it seems to have cured the boot loop. Now what you do is, I bought this one on eBay for £2.99. It's a genuine LG battery, and basically what happens is with inside the battery anyway, and also with inside the phone. Oh, there's me knocking everything over again. There we are, absolutely trashing everything. But anyway, as we were saying, usually inside the phone, as you can see, it's sort of booted up now. There we are. But inside the phone and sometimes inside the battery, there is usually circuit protection. Now, the reason for this is fairly simple. These so-called lithium-ion batteries, or LiPo batteries, are fairly dangerous. Okay, and there's generally, it's regarded that there are a few sorts of circumstances where these things can become unstable. Now, if they're not charged up for a long period of time and they become totally flat, there actually is circuit protection within inside these, or there at least should be on many of these batteries, which will actually force the battery to commit suicide if they are, if they become lack of charge to such a level where they can potentially become a problem. There's circuit protection within these that will cause the battery to basically kill itself into a safe manner. Similarly, there's going to be protection definitely inside the phone. Now what will happen is sometimes if there's been a charging fault or something with the battery or the phone, then the phone will lock itself down to prevent you from being able to force a charge into this. And the reason being is because of the potential risks of them exploding or entering what's called an exothermic chain reaction, otherwise known as a lipo fire, because that would be really bad. Now these things unfortunately don't really give you much prior warning, especially if it was in a device like so. If that started to swell up and get hot, the only real way you would know is that suddenly the phone becomes rather hot, or whatever device it's plugged into. These things swell up and then they just sort of, there's a runaway exothermic reaction. The foil will burst and they explode and burst into flames. And you may have heard of a few years ago that there was a problem with some Samsung devices that were doing that, and as a result those devices were not allowed on aircraft. And of course, for the same reason that you can't really carry batteries loose like that on aircraft, for essentially the same reason, as potentially a way they could be shorted out. Now, what I did try to do with regards to this battery, let's just unplug the charger and let's just move the battery out of that. Now, on there, you can see that red dot, point to that, you can actually see that there. What that is that's a water sensor. If these things get water damaged in any way, they turn from white to red. Now I don't know whether or not that affects the battery's ability to charge in any way. I certainly don't think so, because as we saw, it was charging in the phone. That's just obviously one of those stupid little stickers that tell you that the battery has come into contact with liquids. But essentially that boot loop was caused by that battery. And to clear the boot loop, what you needed to do, or what I did in this case, was for £2.99, take the old battery out, leave it for around 20 minutes, put the new battery in where it's completely flat, so it's a first charge or whatever, then go ahead and charge it up, leave that for a while, half an hour or something, and then I powered the phone up and it cured the boot loop. And interestingly enough, the old battery, where I tried to, and I managed to actually turn that red by licking my finger to clean the battery terminals off because they were all gunged up, and it obviously compromised that water damage indicator. But anyway, basically I've put back in the old battery, that's the new one. So now I've actually got a spare battery, and the phone now does appear to actually power on and is cleared of that boot loop. At least that's now what it seems. So basically all it transpires then, at least I think it's now cleared the fault, it's not doing that stupid boot loop thing anymore. At least it doesn't appear to be. And there we are. It's now saying, okay, we should remove that sticker from there now. Yeah, it's saying 63% there. So basically what this is as well is the phone internally is going to have circuit protection. And if, as we said, there's any reason why the battery is not charging properly, or if the phone detects a battery fault, then that's actually a legal requirement now that cell phone providers and providers of these devices that have, well, not the providers, it's more the manufacturers, but there's a certain health and safety and kind of legal requirements that there should be protective circuits in place within these devices. More often or not, we'll probably find that the battery themselves, there'll be some sort of circuit protection within these too. Usually where that plastic will be, just underneath there, there'll probably be some sort of circuit protection. Now, that's obviously going to be because companies like LG here and whoever are not going to want to run the risk of having these devices blowing up on them all of the time. And because that could leave them open, certainly, to lawsuits. I don't know why this is it doing that silly boot loop again? Oh, it is. So, as it then appears that that battery is indeed then defective, is it? Let's just try this again. Don't forget this is the old battery, so we did put the new one in to see if it would actually reset the phone. If not, then we haven't really gained a battery at all. Let's see what this is doing here. I think that's just basically having a spaz out moment. Well, no, I'm not going to bother waiting around for that. I think it's just still doing that stupid loop thing. So it does transpire that it is the old battery. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that and put in a new one then. That should cure the problem. So we'll just have to charge that up more anyway. And as we can see, so it's starting to charge. Let's hopefully try and turn this on. There we are. Still not very good at turning that phone on for some stupid reason. I don't really play around with LG, but they are pretty good for what they are. Now, this is actually a fairly common issue, certainly with these G3s. As we can see, it's turning on. So it does transpire it's these batteries. But again, this is what makes LG pretty good in that regard, because they would rather render the device unusable through obviously the whole circuit protection deal, as opposed to potentially having this device explode, or rather the battery at least exploding, because now we can see it certainly, it seems to be all on and no problems there. As we can see, it's all on and fine. Now, what I probably will do at some point, and under no circumstances should you ever try this, because obviously there's a risk of these potentially exploding, but I might well have a go at seeing if I can get into this and see if there is any sort of circuit protection in there. If I do that, that will be done outside, purely because of the risk of these things catching on fire and exploding. Certainly if you were to take anything sharp and stick that in there and damage it, then very quickly you would expect to find that swell up, smoke and heat pour and pull off of it before it ultimately bursts into flames. Now, just on a sort of side note with these, if one does decide that it's going to swell and catch fire, don't be tempted to throw water on it. It's not going to help you at all. And in fact, actually, because it's lithium, lithium reacts violently with water anyway, so it'll only make the problem worse. Recommended that if you're unsure about batteries, you should charge them. You can get these sort of heat bags anyway. You can put them inside one of those, or charge them in some sort of metal box or something, Or do what I do and just take a baking tin or something and just cover it over the top and charge it in another, or something like that. So if it does decide to catch on fire, it's not going to go burning anything. And obviously it's a good idea, if you're going to do that, don't charge it on a sort of bench that's flammable, or unless you obviously make your bench heat proof or something. But anyway, that's what transpires was the problem with this. It wasn't in the end a fault with the phone, and it was not a software issue either. It's just basically circuit protection that's ingrained into the phone, and I would have thought also into the battery. And, as you can hear, it's now started to swell, has that? So it's now sort of rocking slightly from side to side. Oh, all right, throw the thing on the floor. There we are, but as we can see, it's sort of started swelling already, indicating that the battery is dead. So the only real cure is, unfortunately, to replace that. But again, I purchased that on eBay for £2.99, and that was with free postage. Now at the time there was only about 2 or 3 of these remaining, so it's quite possible they've all sold out. But nonetheless, when I do go to sell the phone, well, I won't be selling it with that battery anyway, but it will be listed as sold with a new battery. So there we are. It's all fine, and it's just charging there 38%. Not sure who the picture of the girl is there. This is not my phone, as I said. It was one that I sort of purchased second hand. I shouldn't be looking at any of that. So I'll have to wipe this phone forensically before subsequently selling it. But that's it. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to download the necessary tools for this, and I'm going to flash the firmware on the phone and redo the software, and obviously get rid of anything that's on there that is, that's pointing to the previous user. That's because of data protection. But in short, I just thought I would kind of furnish you on a update of the sort of situation. That's the one previously. As you can see there, that was the video I released on the 4th of May. That showed you how to sort of bypass some of the charging, which is not really recommended you do that. But we managed to nonetheless. And whatever it was that we were trying before, we plugged this into a laptop, well, rather a laptop and desktop machine. We tried to run diagnostics on it, and in the end I thought, well, my knowledge and expertise kind of tells me that it's going to be probably some sort of circuit protection in there. So for the sake of £2.99, it was replace the battery, see where we go from that. And anyway, because the battery does actually show water damage now, it would devalue the phone in any event. So total cost of that in the end was around £32.99. I could probably expect to make around £50 to £60 back. So not a bad investment at all. Minimum work that needed to be done. So let's sort of just zoom in for you there. I'll just try to show you that. There we are. And that's obviously the failed battery. And what we can do as well is, back in the previous video that I done on this, that's the one we're obviously mentioning there. Come on, Silly camera. There we are. Oh, I've just cleared it now anyway. But back in that video, I showed you actually how to do the diagnosis on the battery. Anyway, we will go ahead and perform the same tests on that other battery, well, on the new one, just to make sure it's all fine. Now, I don't need to be doing that here anyway, because you can go and have a look at the previous video to see that. So that's as far as that goes. Now again, this is a sort of thing that you would want to be kind of checking out for with any devices that you have. It might be worth you purchasing a spare battery anyway. Then at least, I suppose, if you do run out of power, you have a spare battery there. Generally speaking, as I've said already, whatever the make and model of phone, whether it be Samsung's or whether it be any version of them, generally speaking, they would all have circuit protection inside, and it's the same thing as well if you have tablet computers. It's a usual legal requirement that there is sort of fault protection at minimum within the device. Usually the battery would have that anyway, and obviously the phone manufacturers or whatever, they could obviously leave themselves open to lawsuits if one of these things was to explode and there was no protection there. That would just be a huge fail. So that's generally the first thing that I would try doing, is seeing if anybody else has a spare battery that they can let you try. I would certainly go that way if you don't want to be paying out for one straight away. Now, other than that, there's not really a whole much that needs to be spoken about on this. It is just what it is. And for £2.99, that's not bad for the original. And that's something else that I want to get to as well. Whenever you're purchasing these things, always make sure you get the originals. Don't bother with OEM and non-recommended, because sometimes they may not have any circuit protection in the battery, particularly if you buy copyrighted, well, sorry, not copyrighted, if you bought counterfeit batteries. There is a huge market influx of that, so you have to be careful. The listings for the battery that I saw were indeed, well, it did show genuine battery parts there, and I can confirm anyway the one inside there is definitely genuine. You see, this is the thing, if you buy kind of rip-off batteries and things like that, they don't necessarily may have the circuit protection in there, so if there's a fault, then you could end up with a runaway exothermic reaction. Your battery gets hot, swells up, bursts into flames, kills your device, kills all the data on your device, and if you were charging this up while you were asleep and it burns your house down, then it could kill your face as well. So just be mindful of that. Now again, when charging these things up, I'll only charge them up when I'm sort of awake, I can see what's going on, purely because I can react if there's any problems there. But generally speaking, again, just a simple visual inspection of these things, bung them on a multimeter, check them over before you go installing them into your equipment or devices or whatever, and you should be generally fine. So that's all really for this video. Trust that you've enjoyed it, and well, I hope you have, even if you haven't. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and as always, bang that bell so then you'll know when I put out another video. And until then, see you soon, dear lovely viewer. Okay, ciao.